The why questions sound like what Charlie Brown calls a lot of old stomach aches. Yes,
But the what question cannot be, what were you thinking?
I think too, a part of this triad, because it's interesting you took us there, because we had already had this confidentiality agreement among the three of us before we could even introduce ourselves, okay? But I think there's a piece there where you've got to be able to say, I'm just not ready to talk about that right now.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a comfort level where somebody could say, you know, right now that's too tender for me. And it's okay, I think.
Oh, it's very okay. I love the formula as well, affirmation and vulnerability. If I'm sharing something that I'm struggling with, and somebody says, well, that's kind of funny, and makes a ha-ha, as a way to diffuse the tension by that ha-ha is not funny at all. It tells me, don't speak again. So I think your point is really well made. In the group, when I was with Jack and Phil, we were talking about remembering when we had gumption as young people. Ideas came to us after we did the study just by springboarding. I mean, the truth is, once we get into this, you know, if I was listening to Lisa talk about her week, I'm going to suddenly realize something about my own leadership. It's going to happen. Yeah, whatever group we're a part of, you're going to start, because the point is, you need perspective on yourself. The examine is you reflecting on you, and it's gigantic. That you at least do that, because most women don't do that. But the triad creates perspective. And our goal is not to be approving or disapproving. Although an occasional high five, like we gave back in our group, is okay. All right. I will point out to you page 25. That is about the triad and how it works, okay? And the phrase we use is reciprocal peer coaching. Because it's not, if you watch my hand, this is not a consultant or a coach coaching a person, you know, over under. We're peers. It's reciprocal. 2-way, 3-way, 4-way. And by the way, we've said triads and quads. You could do a quint, but my experience is quad really is about as big as you want to get, because you can't get deep enough unless you want to meet for a long time, 2 hours. And we're not suggesting you meet that long. All right. The last body of material that we're going to look at is basically about a 45-hour talk, which we will do in about 20 minutes. But we're going to talk about various aspects of leadership. Years ago, I began a formal study of leadership because I realized I had not been taught leadership. I had been in the Corps of Engineers. I learned something from that, but I hadn't really studied as an adult. And I concluded that there are 7 ways of thinking about leadership. And this is in Stan's thinking. Now, this excellent book that I'm a big fan of has 5. His 5 and these 7 overlap. And this material is in you don't have to flip-flop. I'm going to go too fast. It'll drive you crazy. I promise you the picture's in there somewhere. The first 4 circles are the core circles. And when I say a circle, I mean a domain of behaviors. The circle of the leader is everything about the person that you are as a leader. Whether it's in the family, in the home, in your work, with a friend, whoever. It's the who you are. The circle of the follower is not about how to be a follower. It's how the leader values and treats the follower. Because the 7 circles are all from the leader perspective. All right? The 3rd circle, vision. What is it we're trying to do? What is it I'd like us to do? The 4th circle we call the call to action. If I have a great idea, let's go to Baskin Robbins, and my idea is we go. I have an idea. I am the person, first circle. I have a follower, you, second circle. I have a vision, third circle, but it's not leadership until I call you, invite you, persuade you to join me at Baskin Robbins. And as you know, there's a lot involved in this. The final three circles are ways to apply the first four in the context of team life. And a team might be at work or at church or a family unit. A team is just a group. The area of delegation, how do you help others assume responsibility? We bring it up because Americans are incredibly poor delegators. We tend to do stuff by themselves. When I talked to a committee chairperson today, guess who does all the work for the committee? The committee chairperson. That's common today. I love to be a committee chairperson. It's not for the power and dominion of it all. It's because you will do the work. What were you saying about the person who, the CEO who didn't do anything? That's okay to me. And finally, development. How do we develop others as leaders? If we have kids or grandkids in our life, are we developing them as leaders? If we have friends, how do we develop people in our life as leaders? They don't take Barnabas courses. It's what you do in their life that helps them grow up. And so we're going to only look at two circles today. The first is the circle of the leader. And here's a word about Barnabas. When Barnabas arrived in Antioch and witnessed the grace of God, and Antioch was an exploding giant movement of Christians, he rejoiced and began to encourage them with resolute heart to remain true to the Lord, for he was a good man and full of the Holy Spirit and faith. That text told me a ton about Barnabas as a person, does it not? Not just what he did, who he is. Why is this important? Because the kind of person you are and the character you have determines a lot about who will follow you and where they'll follow you and how far they'll follow you. It's really a huge issue in your own life. I love the story of Jesus. Why don't you read that while I close this? Put out into the deep water, let down your net. Simon said, Master, parentheses, this is really stupid. You see that? I mean, he's like, I've been up all night. I'm on no-dos, I'm on coffee.
He's an expert on fish.
You know.
He is. He's a fish expert.
He is a fish expert.
Yeah.
What's very important to understand here is Peter thinks the vision is stupid. I have read books on leadership that say the most important thing about leadership is vision with passion. That it's the vision. Really? Jesus brought a vision that he thought was dumb. Why did Peter do it? Because you say so. He so respected Jesus. Okay, you want me to do it. I think it's dumb. I think it's a waste of my time. I'm going to do it out of my pure respect for who you are. That's a big deal. I performed the wedding of a young man a year ago who grew up in the church that I was the pastor of in Pittsburgh. And he is the assistant historian at, what's George Washington's home? Just flew down my head. At Mount Vernon. And so we had these out-of-town guests the other day, and I called Michael up. And Michael had told me, I will take you on a tour of the third floor of the mansion that is closed to the public. Yeah. He even took us in the cupola at the top. I mean, you can touch the hem of my garment. But I'm a kind of a George Washington fan. I truly respect this person. And one of my favorite books is called Washington, the Indispensable Man by William Flexner. And he talks about what he calls the most important meeting in the history of the United States. March the 15th, 1783. Have you ever heard of it? I thought, what? Here's a historian who calls this the most important meeting. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's just after the Revolutionary War. The Continental Congress has refused to pay the Continental Army, who are still at camp. They have no shoes, threadbare, starving. These men become truly angry. As you know, at one point they tried to make Washington king. He had refused. But now they are so angry, one of the officers calls for a secret meeting of all of the officers, not inviting George, because their plan is to march on the Continental Congress and demand. And Washington hears about this, and he calls his own meeting of these officers. And these guys are mad, they're angry, and he's trying to talk them into not doing it, that you're going to attack your own families, your own country. And I mean, it just, nothing he says works. And he remembers he has a letter from a Continental Congressman in his coat pocket. And he pulls the letter out of his pocket and he starts to fumble with it. And it's sort of odd. And the men lean forward with a bit of anxiety because Washington, something is wrong with him. And then he reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out, and he says, "Gentlemen, you'll permit me to put on my spectacles," which they had never seen. "For I have not only grown old, but nearly blind in the service of my country." And historians report the men wept. I'm talking about serious combat veterans here who were mad and wanted to march. And Jefferson later said, the American Revolution, the American Revolution, because of the virtue and character of a single person, ended in a way unlike most other revolutions, which is a subversion of the very liberty that it intended to establish. And if you want illustration of that, look at Egypt. Because they've had a subversion of the very liberty they intended. And the point is here, George Washington's vision was utterly uninteresting to these men. They were mad. It was him. So to me, the circle of the leader is actually not just talk. It's who are you? And how do I become more like the God who loves me? Because that's the only hope I have to grow in character. And I will tell you, please don't look. There's a fair amount of material on the circle of the leader in your material I gave you, because it deals with things like, what does it mean to have an appropriate humility in my weakness and in my strength? And if I'm damaged material, am I getting some help where I'm not well? Where I'm, to use the term we've been using, messy? Because there's junk in our lives. And to be polite about it, if it was put on the big screen, it'd be pretty embarrassing. What does it mean to address that in you? So there's an issue of humility, there's an issue of integrity, there's the issue of tenacity, gumption. The who you are kind of thing is gigantic. And let me ask you a question.